Most of the Gwent cards have a clear origin, being based either on the games or the books, and there are some which are made up for Gwent, but themed around specific Gwent expansions. But there are 3 cards, or actually 5, that stand out a bit, these being Ruehin, Falibor and Milaen, along with Derran and the Tridam infantry. But what makes these characters stand out a bit is that they originate from an unreleased Gwent tutorial. I have in the past talked about this a bit, but as I can't stand listening to my other videos, I want to cover it again in a bit more detail. In the time between when Gwent was originally released in 2016, up until late 2017, there was a short 1 to 2 hour story that was being made as a tutorial to get new players familiar with how Gwent standalone card game works. It was said to be kind of similar to how Thronebreaker works, and it would include a story where you can make your own choices. Unfortunately, this tutorial was scrapped, as more focus was needed on Thronebreaker. The story is set sometime after the events known as the Tridam Ultimatum, a hostage situation in which several bandits took over a boat filled with pilgrims near the town of Tridam. They threatened the Baron of Tridam to give in to their demands, to release a prisoner, otherwise they would kill pilgrims one by one. The Baron would eventually give in, which was not appreciated by his many subjects. They were convinced that outright attacking the boat would have saved more lives. In the events of the Gwent story, it takes place shortly after the death of said Baron. He was assassinated by a group of traitors, who were talked into killing him by the Duke of Cairngorm, who presumably at that time was Nidamellir, before he became king of the Hangforce League. In the events following the Duke's death, his most loyal follower and right-hand man, Falibor, took the Baron's daughter, Torina, in an attempt to get her to Malior, where she would be safe from those who sought to kill her. And thus Falibor needed to go through the woods, as he and his men escorted Torina, with the help of the elf Milaen, who guided them through the woods. It was in these woods that the dark evil known as a Ruehin prowled, a mysterious, ancient type of demon. On their way back to Malior, at the start of the journey through the woods, they would meet Geralt of Rivia and ask him for help in their quest. Knowledge of the story was very limited for a long time, but it seems that in the time that has passed between when I last looked into the story, that a Reddit user named Betraying Chino had found and compiled some voice lines of the story and put them together into a full story using the original script from the tutorial, giving more insights into the story than it once could have been. Links to the original post and the audio can be found in the description.
It was a day like any other. Geralt was riding along a muddy woodland track when his ears detected the sound of fighting in the distance. Monsters were attacking from all sides.
Where'd this filth come from?
Thought the commander, as he dealt blow after blow with deadly determination. A young girl, pale with fright, hid behind his back, too terrified to utter a sound.
Protect the child!
As if in answer, 2 elven arrows whistled past the commander's ear, sinking deep into the eyes of the Arracus that had been a hair from sinking its steel-hard limb into him.
The guide, the she-elf. Perhaps it was a good idea after all.
Thought the commander, turning towards the archer and nodding in appreciation.
I know. Vesemir'd say we should stay out of it. But we don't have much choice, do we, Roach? They need our help.
The Witcher sighed and reached to his back for his silver sword.
I thank you for your help, stranger. You came out of nowhere to save our hides.
Don't mention it. Seemed the right thing to do. I'm Geralt of Rivia, Witcher.
Oh, Dad told me about you. How you cut that Orodzugal to bits and slew a nasty manticore.
Don't usually meddle, but isn't your daughter a little young for those stories?
This is my liege's daughter, the Baron of Tridam's. Terina is her name, and I'm Falibor, her escort.
Speaking of, shouldn't we be moving on?
You needn't beat that dead horse, Elf. I know well we can't turn back now. We must think about Terina's safety.
Seem to be in quite the hurry. But what about your wounded? They need tending to.
This is no place for that. Besides, we've not got the kit. Our supplies are near gone. And the Baron's foes are on our tail.
An elf and a band of humans? Guessing you're not normally part of the company.
You guessed correctly.
They're a group you do belong to? Or are you a one-elf band?
Me? I'm a hunter chiefly. Yet I know these woods inside out. For the right amount of coin, I'm prepared to serve as a guide. But I belong to no one but myself.
Elves, you're all the same. Proud and cocksure. Till push comes to shove and you turn coward.
Insulting your guide? Hardly the wisest thing.
I've grown accustomed. I care not the slightest what men say about me, as long as they pay. Shall we move on?
Ah, blast it all. Should have stayed the devils out of these woods. Gone another way.
You'd have gone around them. To be caught, or to die of hunger.
Witcher, it shames me to ask, but we need an escort. We'll pay you handsomely to get us to Malior safely.
Before I decide, at least gotta know who's after you.
As I said, the Baron's foes. The rogues killed my lord, now they'd see his daughter dead too. But I shan't allow it. I swore to the Baron I'd protect her. And I aim to keep my word, delivering young Terina to the court of her aunt in Malior.
With your liege dead, you risk your life for his daughter? Don't often see that kind of loyalty these days.
I served the old Baron 2 decades. I owe him a great deal. He was a good man, though he could be hard at times.
Had he been as good as you claim, his men would not have risen against him.
What can you know about it, elf? His men rose because that Duke of Cairngorm inspired them, tricked them. Went around festering revolt for months. Dog-bitten scum. The Baron was a good man. Any who dare allege otherwise will have me to deal with. The traitors sent a party after us, and I've too few men to take him on in open battle. So we ventured into the woods, yet it turns out we're not safe here either. So, will you help?
All right, why not? Headed in that direction anyway. If I stand to make a little coin while I'm at it.
You shall make a great deal, you've my word.
If not for Geralt's sharpened senses, they'd never have noticed the remains of a camp on the summit of a nearby hill.
We should investigate,
Falibor said. Geralt, Falibor, and his men searched the camp. They found not one living soul. Whoever had pitched it had left some days past, and in a hurry. Besides the ashes of a campfire, Geralt and the others found some scraps of food, 2 horse blankets, and a half-empty jug of hooch. Yet they saw no signs of a struggle.
They look to be 2 days ahead of us. Must be the remains of their camp.
The travellers reached the top of yet another rise and stopped, dumbfounded by what they beheld. A sumptuous, well-kept farmstead in the heart of the impenetrable wilderness. Yet not a sound came from it, which immediately aroused Geralt's suspicions.
Milaen? Who lives there? Perhaps he'd sell us a bit of food, some bandages.
A nobleman whose name escapes me. Never met him, but then again, the highborn rarely invite my kind over for tea.
Got a bad feeling about the place. Let's keep going. Make camp further on.
Half my men are bleeding to death. The other half are a hair from starving. We've got to risk it.
Falibor, determined to care for his charges, entered the house with the Baron's daughter and all his men.
Damn it.
The interior appeared inhabited, which only heightened its eeriness, for not a living soul was to be seen. The tables in the grand hall were set as if for a feast, while a fire roared in the fireplace. Falibor's starving men tore into the food without hesitation. What they didn't gobble up at once, they stashed into their bundles and satchels, along with some choice pieces of the richly ornamented tableware.
Don't like this. Tell your men to leave whatever they took and let's get out of here.
You worry too much, Witcher. My men need rest. We'll stay here the night and replenish our supplies.
Steal, you mean?
I'd offer coin, but I don't know to whom. No owner to be seen or heard. And to let all this go to waste would simply be a shame.
Think about it. Empty house, middle of the woods, table loaded with food and valuables. All just left here, door unlocked. Doesn't it seem the least bit suspicious to you?
Huh. I don't know. Perhaps they expected guests.
Suddenly, a loud, blood-curdling scream caused them to freeze in place. It came from a room Tridam had sauntered into moments before. Geralt and Falibor rushed to the girl's side. They beheld a grisly sight. The walls and floor of the room were covered in blood, and one of Falibor's men lay dead at the young Baroness's feet.
Gods! What happened here? Mistress, are you...
The girl did not answer. She stood silent and motionless, her empty eyes gazing into dead space.
Can't hear you. She's in shock. Need to get her out of this house, fast.
All right, child. You're safe now.
What was that, Witcher? What happened in there?
Saw what you saw. Know as much as you do.
What's with Tridam?
Let's hope it's just shock and she'll recover soon. We should go. Quicker we leave this forest, the better.
Alas, it did not go as Geralt had hoped it would. Tridam remained in shock, uttering not a word after they left the house. In fact, it seemed her condition was further declining. By evening, she had grown so weak she had to be carried. Geralt and Falibor decided to pitch camp for the night to give her time to rest. A sharp tug woke Geralt in the middle of that moonless night. He saw Falibor close, leaning over him, concern writ on his face. The young Baroness had a high fever and was delirious raving. Geralt gave her a few drops of white gull to calm her. 3 men were sent out to gather wood for a fire. Somehow she had to be kept warm until morning. None of the men sent to gather wood returned. By dawn's first light, it was clear to Geralt they could wait no longer.
Witcher, this cannot be. You cannot mean to leave those lads to their fate.
Falibor said in frustration, but he too knew well they had to move on. For Tridam's sake, she needed to leave those woods. In a clearing, the travellers came upon a ditch filled with massacred remains. The discovery further deepened their already dark mood, crushing their morale to the last.
Human. Seem fresh.
Geralt concluded, his brow furrowed. When a wounded man crawled from beneath the pile of corpses, Falibor emitted an involuntary cry.
It's Derran, one of my scouts. By the gods, what happened here?
Falibor's blood began to boil. Derran was in no condition to answer him. He only trembled and muttered, clearly in deep shock. Tridam observed the survivor with eyes wide as saucers. Falibor insisted they had to take Derran with them as they journeyed on, yet Milaen said a man in his condition was too unpredictable. Sickness, madness, despair could consume him at any time. She suggested he be escorted to the forest's edge. No one tried to stop Falibor as he went to help the man up. Derran kept calm, while mumbling something about the other scouts, and pointing towards the gruesome pit, which they left behind as they quickly moved on.
Something's coming. Can hear neckers and Arakise? Strange.
Strange or no, we've got to gut 'em before they gut us.
Neckers, Arachise, don't usually attack together, especially not in large groups.
The forest is ancient. There is magic throughout. Perhaps that is why.
Could be. Got the feeling someone was controlling those monsters. Someone. Or something. Medallion's been humming ever since we left the house. Whatever sicked those beasts on us has been watching us this whole time.
You did this, Milaen. You know these woods. Know their dark magic. You led us here deliberately, so that vileness would kill us, leaving you to collect our belongings. No use denying it!
You're mad, Dwan! It was not I who marched into that house, but your men. It was they who doubtless woke some sleeping horror.
Calm down. Fighting won't help. We gotta get out of these woods fast. We still got far to go?
No, not far. We must head east.
A short while later, they arrived on the shore of a small lake. A cold shiver ran down Geralt's spine. The woods had gone quiet, and the sun barely pierced the forest canopy, casting ragged, reddish shadows on the lake surface. Falibor gave the order to halt. Some of his men walked towards the water, thinking to slake their thirst and replenish their waterskins. Since he could in no way prove the lake represented any danger, Geralt ignored his suspicions and did not protest as Falibor's men refilled their skins. When dusk fell, an uneasy sleep crept over all in the camp. Those who had drunk from the lake tossed and turned on their blankets all night, crying out in their sleep. They awoke the next morning soaked in sweat, speaking of mysterious voices, beckoning them from the depths. Geralt swore under his breath. They never should have spent the night there. They quickly broke camp and set off, but their nightmares lingered long after. At noon the next day, the group stumbled upon a gathering of ruins. Though the walls had largely crumbled, the distinct, lacy style of their architecture was still in evidence.
These lands, all of them, once belonged to the elves.
Milaen stated bitterly. Though the structures were near collapse, these seemed worthy of being explored, albeit cautiously. Geralt, Falibor, and the rest resolved to explore the ruins, which proved to be in sorry shape, in truth no more than piles of rubble overgrown with weeds. Geralt puzzled over a well-preserved inscription in Elder speech. The Elder sees all and judges all. Abandon all hope. Suddenly there was a loud clatter. Falibor's men, in attempting to pull a tattered tapestry off a wall, had caused a section of the wall to crumble. A hidden chamber stood revealed, and inside it they found several undisturbed earthenware vessels.
Oil, sap, and... quicklime?
Geralt noted, perplexed. Falibor carefully placed the vessels in his satchel.
You need but add sodium and... You've not heard of scorch?
Elven balm.
Geralt took a step back. He had seen men hit by scorch before. More accurately, seen what remained of them afterwards.
Very useful should we face a stronger foe.
They emerged from a deep ravine, and a ghastly sight unfolded before their eyes. A clearing strewn with dead men, their bodies shredded, mutilated, torn to bits. Falibor recognized the victims. These were the men he had sent out to gather wood, and who had then disappeared. Geralt examined their remains, but could not tell what had killed them. Yet one thing was certain. The massacre was not the work of men. Torina, left unattended, approached the edge of the meadow. Falibor pulled her to him gently, and covered her eyes with his hand. What happened next took mere seconds. Upon seeing the bodies, the scout Derran, the miraculous survivor, flew into a rage. Murder in his eyes, he attacked his companions. In defending themselves, they were forced to run him through with their swords. silence descended once more over the clearing.
We cannot leave them like this. We must give them a proper burial.
Falibor insisted. Neither the Witcher nor Milaen objected. They buried them quickly, silently. Tridam stared with wide, motionless eyes as the bodies disappeared beneath layers of lumpy soil. Two hours before sundown, the woods began to thin. Falibor squinted and gazed into the distance. A moment later, a smile lit up his face.
Look, there! Between the trees! Is that... It is! Malio Town Hall! Its spire! We've made it! Doubted we'd ever see clear of those woods. Wait! What the devil?
Falibor turned towards Tridam and froze in fear.
Mistress? Tridam!
Geralt pursed his lips. His hand flew to his back, and he drew his silver sword.
That's not Tridam. Weapons, everyone!
A terrible battle followed. Falibor's men fought hard, but ultimately all fell. Only Geralt, Milaen, and Falibor himself were left standing. Shocked and confused, Falibor demanded answers. He couldn't comprehend how a little girl could have turned into a bloodthirsty beast.
In that house. Something happened to her in that house, didn't it?
He asked. Geralt nodded. He suspected a demon known as a Ruehin had possessed Tridam. The Witcher was surprised it had taken so long to take full control of her. The young Baroness must have been strong-willed, stout of character. Nevertheless, they could not have saved her. Suddenly, to the men's surprise, Milaen, who had been nothing but calm and determined all along, drew her knife and put it to Falibor's throat.
Have you gone daft, elf? What are you doing?
Don't remember me, do you? Well, I remember you perfectly. Elias's Mill. Savoine, 12 years past. Ring any bells?
What the devil's are you talking about, elf?
12 years. 3 months. 5 days. That is how long I've waited for revenge.
Revenge? For what?
You killed my father, scum! His name was Aaron. You hanged him at the centre of the village to make an example of him.
Yes, the poacher. I remember. The Baron had no tolerance, no mercy for poachers.
He was merciless towards all. His levies meant we starved, and he'd not even give us leave to hunt. My father defied him, and he had my father killed. And now I shall kill you.
Knew there were monsters in the woods, didn't you? Brought them through here on purpose, to exact vengeance, to kill Falibor.
I spent years dreaming of revenge. When the chance came along, I had to seize it.
The others, give them any thought? Soldiers in his unit? Tridam? They're dead, all of them.
I regret it happened like that. But their deaths were not in vain, I assure you. Through their sacrifice, Falibor shall face justice at last.
Geralt sighed heavily. He despised it when others drew him into their squabbles.
You deserve each other. Do what you will. Just make sure to stay out of my way from now on.
No. Witcher, help me! You cannot leave me like this!
Falibor's muffled scream pierced the air, then quickly passed into a hollow death rattle. The Witcher cursed under his breath. For a brief moment, he craved to leap at Milaen, repay her in kind for her deed, but ultimately, he decided against it. The elf tried to say something, to explain, but Geralt did not hear it. Furious that he had been forced again to choose between two evils, he brushed his sleeve clean of the blood that had spurted from Falibor's wound and set off on his way.
The ending has a kind of twist in there. And it of course isn't the happiest of endings, but it has to be kept in mind that you could make choices in the story. Choices which could presumably change some parts of the story, like most notably the ending. There might even have been a way to perhaps save Tridam. But what do you think of this story? Would you have liked to see it in game? Till the next video. Bye.